exactly 4 years after 13-year-old Cristina Pangalangan lost her life due to car heat stroke. Her mom, Rita Pangalangan, and her ex-boyfriend, Larry King, have been found guilty of murder and also of causing bodily harm. This is one of the cases that I was really following when it came up, but I just wanted to track it to its end, so I give it to you as a full picture of how it started and how it ended. Although the sentence is being talked about by some people that it could have been harsher, I'm here to break everything down, right from when the thing happened, the facts of the case as have come out, and the sentencing that happened some few hours ago, and certain statements that the judge gave in the lead up to his sentencing. This is one of the cases that if you're a parent, I'm sure you would get very angry as you go along with it, because you can see the sheer negligence that played out on the part of two adults, one of which was actually, or let me say, is actually the mother of this 13-year-old victim. Rita Pangalangan, I think, should actually be ashamed of herself, irrespective of whatever she or her loved ones think about her. But that is my opinion, though. If you agree with me, let me know in the comment section. That is not also to absolve her ex-boyfriend of his responsibilities, because as we would find out later, it turns out he's also a father of two and also a grandfather as well. But there's a twist, because with all this, then the question will come in as in, then why couldn't they do better? Hold on to that question. You get your answer soon. So the whole thing started on the 5th of August 2019, when 13-year-old Cristina Pangalangan was found deceased in her mother's car. Initially, it seemed more like a case of a child unfortunately being deceased because a mechanical problem had happened with the car and it had gotten locked up. But questions started coming up and investigations started digging, because first question was, how did this happen? How does the child even get left alone in the car in the first place for it to end up that this mechanical problem happened and the child was trapped alone? Yeah, that's the first logical question. And to that, they were talking about, oh, the car got locked and we were trying to get a key. We had to go and get a spare key and come back. Really? Well, somebody might buy that, but trust you me, I drive as well. I don't buy it. In as much as there is a probability, although a low one, that such an issue can come up where mechanically a car can lock up. I've seen one before. The car was on, the engine was on, and some way, somehow, the central lock just kicked in and it got locked. I've seen one before. But there are ways to go about this thing, especially when there's a kid in the car. You can't tell me that your kid is locked up in the car and you decided that the smartest way to get the kid out of the car was to go back and find your spare key at wherever you placed it, outside of the location where the incident is currently ongoing, leaving the kid in the car. When I heard that excuse, I knew it was a straightforward lie. And I was praying that investigations will corroborate my suspicion. And rightly so, it did. Because they ended up leaving this kid in the car for at least 5 hours. And not just 5 hours, there's an additional 41 minutes on top of that. The 41 minutes is even bad enough, not to talk of the 5 hours. So this alone refutes the claim of, oh, we were going to get the spare key. Because for me, at a point in time, I'm asking myself, which is more important? That glass window you could break through easily and unlock the car manually and get this kid out and save a life, or the kid whose life is irreplaceable and you have a duty to, especially as her mom, and by extension, this ex-boyfriend, who is also an adult and should understand the concept of having to care for a child, or having to protect a life for that matter, because he's also a dad of 2 and a grandpa. So it still didn't make sense. I don't think they can't afford the cost of replacing that window. I think there was something to it, or let me say, now everything has come out. By the time I thought there was something to it, 2 things, one of which would be the possible reason. 1, it was deliberate. They wanted to do this to this kid, and they did. And they've built excuses around the story to push it and sell it to whoever will come asking. Or 2, they genuinely made a mistake. Now, going with 1, it will be straightforward. They will have to make their lies up as they go, although they will have some pre-agreed and established ones in place to build the other ones around. But if we are going with the second suspicion, where there's a possibility it was a genuine mistake, then the question would be, these guys should know better. Because Rita was actually a teacher. She teaches school kids. So this is somebody who is very conversant and familiar with taking care of kids. And her kid, Cristina, was actually 13 years old. So she's had time with this kid leading up from her birth through to the age of 13 years, and should be getting used to her needs and how she should take care of her. So it shouldn't be new to her. So how would such negligence come up to the point that she's leaving the kid in the car for 5 hours and 41 minutes to lose her life? The concept of negligence, or the reason of negligence, it doesn't make sense unless the negligence was fueled by something. Yeah, that was my line of reasoning, but I couldn't really find out what would have fueled it if it's indeed negligence, because, well, I'm not the one investigating the case. So I was keenly following this case because I didn't want to get ahead of myself and put the video out only to find out that it's a different angle altogether. I felt that this is a case that, in order for us to do justice to Cristina, the victim, we needed to wait for the whole piece to come together. And now it has. Here are the facts. First of all, as already established, Rita Pangalangan was a teacher, and her kid is the victim in this case, Cristina Pangalangan. Rita used to date Larry King, and they broke up. Larry King himself is also, or was also, previously married and has 2 kids, and is also a grandfather. So one of his kids have kids as well. So these guys are old. Larry King is around 46 years old. He knows better, or let me say, he should know better. Shouldn't he? Obviously he should. And it turns out that they reconnected. So Rita Pangalangan reconnects with her flame, her old fling or flame, Larry King. And their love is blossoming. But another twist is, it turns out also that Larry King is a former drug addict. I would say former because he himself addressed himself that way. So I wouldn't want to take it away from him, the way he addressed himself. He said that he was a former drug addict and that he had recovered, and at the time he was a drug addict, specifically methamphetamine, he was actually using it as part of his normal life. So if that is true, then it means that this guy could be drugged up and he could be dealing with you in whatever situation you are dealing with him on. And you might not know. You might think you are talking to somebody who is fully level-headed, in quotes, straight-minded, and is fully functioning in his or her mental faculty to give you whatever you are looking for from this person, either as a service or as a response or as a support. But unknown to you, this guy has methamphetamine probably influencing his actions. So this was the guy that Rita Pangalangan had allowed into the life of her daughter by virtue of her bringing him into hers. I hope you are tracking. Yeah. And I think that That was the first bad decision that Rita made as a mother, because you don't just go with your heart and leave your kids to pick up the scraps from your actions. You don't just go with your heart and leave your kids to face the harsh realities of the consequences of your romantic life. And that is what is playing out here, because it was found out later that it was not just because there was a mechanical fault. They actually locked the car, they left the kid in the car with the car locked. And guess what they went to do? They were literally chasing after each other, kissing, and hitting some meth joints and taking some methamphetamine shots. This is what they were doing. And it seems they felt that Cristina would be a hindrance to them getting that high, or a hindrance to them getting to enjoy these kind of activities that they felt was more important to them, and they decided to pursue and leave her in the car. If you are tracking, you now begin to see the whole thing coming together. So it looks like they didn't really plan to end Christina's life. So my first suspicion has been debunked by virtue of these findings, and it rather turns out that there was a form of negligence, but it's not really negligence. It's rather a decision that we are going to leave this kid in this car and go and pursue a high and some romance. Because at the time that decision was made, they were not high. They were not high. But as the issue started playing out, the high kicked in, because they had now gotten on methamphetamine and it was influencing their actions. Why do you take a kid with you if you are going to hit a meth joint in the first place? Not to say it would have been any less good if the kid wasn't with them. All I'm saying is, it's wrong to take meth. Yeah, that has been established. It's wrong to take the meth in the first place. But why go through with that and add a kid on top of it? And then end up risking the life of the kid, and ultimately the kid losing her life because of car heat stroke. And car heat stroke, trust you me, I think it's a very brutal way to go, because you can imagine it's torture. And when I heard the judge's pre-sentencing statements, I was really happy, because I was in sync with him. Everything he said is everything I was thinking about, as would have influenced my decision if I was the one to pass the sentence. The analysis was so on point, and I was really excited about it, because he called Rita Pangalangan out on her BS. You could see she was trying to play an emotional card and also get to put out a last minute hoorah to sort of emotionally exploit or manipulate maybe the judge or the prosecution or the jury or whatever. I don't know. But I think that the judge was on point. Now, fast forward. So they left Cristina in this car. They went to pursue romance and methamphetamine. And Cristina ended up staying in this car for about 5 hours and 41 minutes. And unfortunately, lost her beautiful young life at the tender age of just 13 years old. Who does this as a mother? Who does this as a mother? I always say that it's one thing giving birth to a child, it's another thing being a mother or a father. As for giving birth, once that sexual intercourse happens and there's the intent to give birth and all natural causes flow, there's a high probability you give birth. Yeah. But that is childbirth. And you are the person who gave birth to the child. So in that context, you are the mother. But the true essence of motherhood or fatherhood calls for something more than just making love to somebody and having a kid. It calls for self-sacrifice, where you put the needs of the child above and beyond yours, such that you would have to sacrifice certain things just so you can give your child the best. And if Rita Pangalangan was a real mom who understood this, she wouldn't leave her child in the car and allow her boyfriend, Larry King, to lock her in the car just so they go and pursue some romance and some high. That is you telling your kid that I've put you on pause. I'm going to enjoy my life. When I come back, I'll see where you are and see if I can move on with you. That was a total disregard for her kid and a total disregard for her motherly duties. The defense of Larry King was trying to argue that he had not really played any hand in the murder, and as such, although the case is something else from his perspective, he couldn't be charged with murder. But you see, I don't agree. In as much as Rita Pangalangan is the West, Larry King is also the next West sidekick to the West mother, because he is 46 years old. He has 2 kids and a grandchild. What did he think was going to happen when he locks a kid in the car for over 4 hours and over 5 hours and 41 minutes? What was he expecting was going to happen? Oh yeah, he didn't really think into it because he was so keen on going for his high and his romance. Now, if you trace the root cause of the murder, that is where it starts from. Because if you do the maths, if the kid was never locked in the car, some people could have even opened and gotten her out. Or the kid herself could have tried to open and get her out. That is where the whole thing starts from. The car became a death trap just because she had been locked in it for so long. And his defense was trying to put across the case that, oh, he thought the air conditioning was on. I'm like, really? Because with most vehicles, if the air conditioning is on, it means that you should also be able to control the windows as well. I don't know the specific model of this car they were using, but I don't think that argument would fly, because if the AC is on, how can you think the AC is on and you don't even know for a fact whether it was on or not? Because if you are deciding to leave that 13-year-old in a car, you should know whether the AC is on or off. You shouldn't think it was on. That is uncertainty. You should be sure of what you are leaving the child to. Not to talk of the fact that it's not even okay to leave the minor in the car alone, unattended to. So these guys were going from bad parenting 101 to bad parenting at a PhD level. These guys were just breaking all the good parenting rules, and they were making it up along as they go, because they were chasing themselves, running after themselves, looking for a romance and a high. And like I said, I think the judge called it perfectly. Rita's sister came in to testify about how good a mom she was. Well, I've seen very, very few cases, if any, where you find relatives of accused people coming to testify against those accused people. So usually I don't put much faith into what family members of accused people say. And that is not me being biased. That is me trying to be objective, because as the judge would point out later, and I was so happy he made that statement, the people who commit the crimes out there are not the same people who come to the courtroom. That was what the judge said. And I agree with him perfectly, because at the point in time the crime is being committed, this person is having a different context and perspective. Selfishness has probably kicked in, and this person has actually had a thought process function and conclude that this is what I'm going to do per what is in it for me. To hell with the law, to hell with whoever will be a victim. I'm doing this and I'm good to go. But then when the law catches up with this person and the person is processed and brought to court and charged and now is being prosecuted, remorse kicks in, and this person now has to talk about, I wish I could turn back the hands of time. And that's what Rita Pangalangan was doing. Talking about, I wish I could turn back the hands of time. I would have done better. I love my kid, blah, 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 whatever, 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 yada, yada, yada. You have allowed this to play out already. And the judge called it on point. He told her that, well, unfortunately, you can't stand back the hands of time and you have allowed this to happen under your watch. You are going to have to live with it for the rest of your life. That is somebody who is shooting straight, and I love it. Because sometimes you find that people do things deliberately and they come back to play the remorseful person, the repentant person, try to emotionally manipulate people who have to place judgment on the case and call them out and hold them accountable. And sometimes they seem to have a bit of a success with it. I'm happy with how this judge went about the whole thing. He spoke the facts to her face, just so she goes in to start her sentence knowing that she couldn't emotionally manipulate anybody. And it's also an example to all other people out there that you can't be out there doing things anyhow, some leading to damage to people, some leading to injury and harm to people, some even causing deaths for people, and you come to court and you are come to play emotional and spiritual and repentant. That will not fly. And I love it because, it's easier for people to have gotten to the angle of, oh, she's repentant. Somebody even quoted in a case I'm reading up on that if you haven't committed any sin, cast the first stone. And I'm like, what is that? So are you therefore saying that because, and the person went on to say people are sinning differently and somebody's accusing somebody? All right. And I'm like, let's analyze that statement. Are you therefore saying that if somebody has done some wrong at a point in time and has been caught or is yet to be caught, the person should keep quiet for everybody to do them wrong? Or the person should keep quiet and not call out or report on people who are doing other wrongs? Because it doesn't make sense to me. We don't necessarily need only blameless people to report incidents. It doesn't matter. If you are caught, you are caught. If you know someone who's done something, also get the person arrested, report on the person. But don't make it seem like, oh, we are taking a scripture from the Bible and it's saying that he who is without sin should cast the first stone. So if somebody has done something, blah, 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 whatever. I'm like, are we playing here? Because the case I'm investigating and trying to build the true crime story on is about gang raping. And if this has been done to a lady and you have other ladies talking about he who is without sin should cast the first stone, and they are saying this in defense of the suspect who actually has a footage of it, I get disgusted. I'm like, what is the world getting to? Can we be sincere and look our friends and family members in the face and call them out on their BS that, hey, I love you, but you can't do this. You should have done it this way. It saves us all the trouble. It makes us all better. I believe that is the essence of the true loyalty we owe each other as friends and family members. If you don't agree with me, let me know. If you agree with me, I would love to hear from you too. And I think that is where we should go, but I digress. So her sister, Rita's sister, came to testify, but like I said, I don't really put so much confidence in that because by default, it's almost always expected family members will stand up for each other. Her uncle also came to talk about Cristina not really being a needy kid and all, but the facts are out there. Cristina was actually determined to be a wheelchair dependent and a non-verbal kid. Now, imagine such a kid being left alone in a vehicle and she can't exit the vehicle for 5 hours and 41 minutes. Where were the parents? Her mom was with her ex-boyfriend, enjoying some romance and also getting high off methamphetamine. They actually come back at a point in time and they go back inside again to go and enjoy themselves. I think the judge is an excellent judge because you could see that in as much as he was breaking down these facts, he was doing them devoid of personal emotion. I watched the sentencing and I smiled because he did an excellent work in my eyes. Let me put it that way. So as it stands now, Rita Pangalangan and Larry King are facing the justice that they so deserve. And Cristina Pangalangan, the victim, is also finally having to get some justice for herself as well. I hope that she's resting in peace. I really hope so. Rita Pangalangan was sentenced to 37 years for murder and 20 years for great bodily injury, whilst her ex-boyfriend, Larry King, was sentenced to 32 years for murder and 20 years for great bodily injury. And they are going to serve these sentences concurrently. And credit will also be given for time served. Now, in case you don't understand the credit being given for time served, let me just explain the legal implications. So that means that of these sentences that they've been given, in determining whether they've served up to it, they are first of all going to have to deduct the number of days that they've served in jail since the whole thing started to date. So once that is deducted, then they are going to serve the rest. So I think for Rita Pangalangan, she has served about 39 days. Now, this is like a drop in the ocean because you have 37 years and we are going to deduct 39 days. In the negative sense, I think it's almost insignificant, and I'm happy she gets to serve this time. I watched her address as well before the sentencing, and she spoke about a lot of things. She talked about the fact that she's sorry, she was weeping and all. Honestly, I need to be there in person to determine whether it was fake or it was true. So I can't speak to that, but I think that let's assume it's true. Let's give her the benefit of the doubt, and I'll speak to that. Assuming it's even true, I think that sometimes you make mistakes. She's saying it's a mistake. Let's go with what she was saying, that it's a mistake in her context. Even if it was a mistake and she has regretted, people also need to understand that sometimes you make mistakes, genuine mistakes that you genuinely regret and are genuinely remorseful of, but it doesn't absolve you of the responsibility that you still have to face the consequences. And I think that that is what has happened here. Justice cannot be postponed or abandoned based on how remorseful someone has been, especially when the life of another person, in this case, a kid, has been lost. And I'm hoping that Rita Pangalangan, going forward, is going to really look at her life choices, because in as much as there was a bit of question mark around how good of a parent she was to Cristina Pangalangan, I think the whole thing came to a head when she allowed, or she decided to allow, her ex-boyfriend back into her life. Because there were incredible testimonies about Rita Pangalangan, some even from people who knew her at work and off work, talking about how excellent of a person she is, how dedicated she is, how loving she is. So I think that Rita Pangalangan is genuinely having some great qualities in her. I don't think she's bad all around, but I think that the mistake she made, which she might probably be referring to, is the part about allowing her ex-boyfriend, Larry King, to come back into her life and the life of her daughter, who needed so much care and attention. The last thing you should be leaving her for, or considering leaving her for, is to go and take some shots of methamphetamine and romance on top of it. So these are my 2 cents on this issue. And to the point that it's even being reported, the car got heated. The internal vehicle, or the inside of the car, got heated reportedly to about 155 degrees. And you have a kid in there. A kid who is non-verbal. How does she even scream for help? A kid who is reportedly wheelchair dependent. How does she even rally the strength to try and break free? This was torture, and it's a shame. It's a big shame. And I hope that Rita Pangalangan will come out to admit how she failed. In as much as she's sorry, she should also admit how much she failed as a mother and try to make peace with the soul of her daughter. It's no better if it was done by an outsider, but it cuts deep if this was done by a mother to her own daughter. So justice has been served, and we hope other parents are going to learn from this. We hope other guardians are going to learn from this, because it is no easy feat. Sometimes it might not be for reasons as we are seeing in this case, but it might be for other reasons that can come up, and you have to be really, really wise and thoughtful. There are certain things that you shouldn't allow to come into your life when you are with kids. There are certain places you shouldn't even go to when you are with kids, because it can end up endangering them. How many parents or guardians are thinking into these things? Is it becoming like, oh, let me just make a detour here, let me do that here, let me do that here? There should be that deliberate effort that I'm with precious cargo in the form of these kids. I need to be careful of my actions and inactions. A peaceful sleep or a peaceful rest is what I wish for the soul of Cristina Pangalagan. And I hope that she finds peace. I hope that Rita Pangalangan also finds peace, because it's going to eat at her, probably more than her ex-boyfriend Larry King. And I'm hoping that things will get better eventually in that family. Subscribe to the channel if you are yet to do so. Like our videos. I love to hear feedback from you. It really, really helps. And I think you have shaped the way that I go about my content. You've also shaped the way that I approach the stories, and I'm happy to hear from you. Please don't hesitate to do so. Share our videos to help protect ourselves, because we learn from these things. This can also happen in the case of negligence, in the case of another parent. So let's share these things so that we learn. Just share the videos out there. I'll catch you next time. And like I've been saying, keep an eye out and stay safe out there.